Day 3! Welcome to day 3 of the free 7-day self-love challenge. In this video, we're focusing on reclaiming your personal power. Get ready to dive deep. There might be emotions, there might be releases, there will be homework, and you might be a different person by the end. Tomorrow, we share the offer. That offer closes on day 7 so we can get ready for the next round. Go through the challenge as many times as you want for free. When you're ready, take the offer to go deeper. Now, let's get into it. Welcome to day 3. Today we're going to be talking about how to know when you are giving your power away.
Yes, this is a big one. I'm excited about today. But before we do that, as you guys come on, say hello. I see people are already popping on to join us for this morning's class. Hi, Ashley. For those of you guys that are just getting to know us, I'm Heather.
And I'm David.
Zen Ed Academy.
Yes. Helping people create
badass lives.
Bam, bam, bam.
All right, you guys. We're excited. How many people did the homework? I know I'm looking at people that I know did the homework, but did you do your homework from yesterday? We had a lot of fun with that exercise, getting on and saying nice things about everybody. Yep. That was really fun for us, and let us know if you did it, if you enjoyed it. Ashley says, have to do the meditation with Jasper. So let me just kick it off with a question about power. Because over the years, we've gotten many questions from clients like, how do you know when you're giving your power away? And how do I get it back? This is a huge recurring question for us with clients. Because we find sometimes you don't even realize you're giving your power away. And then once you realize you've given it away, you don't know how to get it back. So this is kind of what today is about. And it very, 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 very much ties into self-love.
Yep.
Okay. Sometimes we're really shocked at the ways we're giving our power away. We did not even realize it.
So the question that we have for you guys today is, what is the most epic way in your past that you have given your power away?
The most catastrophic, I just fucked myself in the ass way that you're giving your power away.
Yeah, I think we're not kid friendly today. Sorry, Holly.
We're always PG-13, you know.
Right.
You just gotta know. Hi, Nima. Hi, Becky, for just joining us.
Yep. And Flora says, I enjoyed it so much. That exercise yesterday was amazing.
I like those interactive things when we react with each other. And hi, Nancy. Hi, Zen. Hey, Zen Fam Love. We love you guys so much. This is just, we're growing deeper and deeper in these challenges. So sometimes situations where we lose our power teach us the most about power. Right. So this is what we're going to get into today. And like I said, this ties into self-love way more than you initially thought. Our day 1 was about some self-care practices. And there's lots of self-care practices out there to help you learn the techniques of self-love. But
matter of fact, let's just take a moment right now and do that exercise. Absolutely. And let's give ourselves that morning hug.
Take that deep breath.
Oh, that is so good. And these are things that you don't think about. You just get caught up in your day. You get caught up in whatever you got to do. And all it takes is just a little moment for yourself. So there you go.
So as you're kind of thinking of why that most epic way you screwed yourself in the butt with giving your power away, I'm going to kind of give you a little intro about why we give our power away. Because we need to know why we're giving it away in the first place before we can take it back. Well, first of all, more power equals more responsibility to use it wisely. And we're always afraid of, oh gosh, now I have more work to do, right?
So with great power comes great responsibility.
That's the famous quote, right?
What it also does is it brings you more freedom. More freedom to be yourself, more freedom to not be afraid of what people are going to say or do or think about you.
So we shy away from that great responsibility. I think some of these quotes that are meant to be great quotes sometimes scare the shit out of us. You know, with great power comes great responsibility. We often seen that quoted in movies where we've got this leader of a nation trying to make a huge decision or fight the aliens and save the world. And it's like, I don't want that. I just want to be on vacation. So we tend to shun away from that, not realizing that what we receive is so much bigger than that. The freedom that we receive.
Right. But how do you get more responsibility? How do you take more responsibility for your actions? in order to do that, you've got to face your own deep fears of inadequacy and the feeling of being powerless, the fear of being powerless.
Right. So those are the fears that you have to face to take that responsibility, to own it, to wield the sword of your own power.
Yep.
Deep fears of inadequacy and being powerless. Those are the two basic fears that you've got to face. And they are definitely tied into how much you love yourself. So we're going to get into those layers as we go on today.
And how much value and worth you place on yourself.
So at the core, it's the responsibility of being conscious of your choices and how they impact your reality.
Yes,
that's gonna
yours and to a lesser degree those around you, but yours definitely. Because and one of my greatest quotes again, your perception creates your reality. How you choose to see the world around you is exactly how you're going to see it.
And beyond that, your choices, because your perception is energy thought, and that moves into your choices. So your choices are what we're talking about and how you wield your power today.
Right.
So in the past, just as a side note, we have seen spiritually aware people that know this stuff, afraid, give their power away. Spiritually aware people giving their power away right and left because they're afraid that their actions of power in the world might harm people or the planet.
Which means that they're probably not ready to wield that kind of power because they haven't faced the fears of their actions hurting other people. So, if they're coming from that conscious and conscientious place inside, you're not out to hurt anybody, and that's probably not going to be the reality. Wielding your power for good is never a bad thing.
So often when we see spiritually aware people, because I'm quoting, but it's kind of a misnomer on my part, spiritually aware, but not quite walking the walk. You can be spiritually aware,
and
but
not
spiritually actively engaging the concepts of spirituality. So often what we see with a lot of clients is they're turning that power inwards instead of using it and wielding it, and creating unnecessary problems and drama in their life, in their relationships, with their finances, with their health. Like it kind of goes cattywampus because power is not being used wisely. You've got power. You're going to do three things with it. You're going to surrender it to someone else. You're going to turn it inwards, which is why we see a lot of spiritually weird people do it, because they know that they got to use that power. Right. But you're being afraid to use it. Did I say all three? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So this is what we're going to explore. Let us look at some of these epic fails of using surrendering power now before we get into the meat of what.
Ashley says, I let my brother traffic drugs while he was living in my house. I could have ruined my life.
Definitely.
That would be an epic moment of giving your power away.
Yes.
Absolutely. When I fight other people's battles, that is huge. That is a great way to let your power go to somebody else.
Yeah, and that's one of the ways that we see spiritually aware people misusing their power. They're surrendering it, fighting other people's battles. That's what I was talking about. Instead of using that power to do something that will change the world or further your mission, you tend to try to control, fight other people's battles, which you're not going to help them at all by fighting their battles, right?
How are they really going to learn how to step up and stand in their own power if somebody else is always doing it for them, whether that's you or somebody else?
The exception to that might be, a child that can't fight for themselves, right? Okay, so let's see any other epic fails.
Just go gadget arms. That morning hug was amazing.
All right.
That's what I gotta say. Oh, we have a few work sneakers here. That's pretty cool.
You guys are sneaky.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
All right, guys. Let us talk a little bit more about power, because I love this. So as always, our process with these group coaching sessions is we're going to give you the roadblocks, some solutions. I need to cut my bangs. And then David's going to give us this meditation that kind of takes us in there.
She says she needs to cut her bangs, but if she cut her bangs, then
keep poking me in the eye.
They wouldn't grow past.
Yeah, I'm growing my hair out, so it's kind of one of those.
So you guys get the raw, raucous look.
That's what's happening this morning. Okay.
So in order to understand what it means when we give our power away, we have got to first understand what is power.
Okay.
So power is the ability to create a desired result.
Boom.
That's it.
Simple. So our motivation for power is to create desired positive outcomes, right? It's the ability to attract or create circumstances in our lives that lead to positive gain.
Yep.
Okay.
So those experiences do build our sense of power. The ability to create that desired result makes us feel more confident because we got what we wanted. We built up what we needed and wanted, and that builds that sense of power and that sense of confidence and that sense of standing in your strength, which is an amazing sense of self-love.
So we become more powerful every time we use our power. Responsibly, not irresponsibly, like surrendering it or turning it inwards to create what we want. Because power has a cumulative effect.
And I also want to say, when we're talking about power, deep down, we all want to feel powerful. And then again, going back to the ego element of the other day, we want to feel powerful, but we're told that power is corruptive. Okay, that power corrupts us. Ultimate power corrupts absolutely. And I call bullshit on that. Because when you're in that state of confident, genuine power and you're using it responsibly, you're using it for your best good, you're using it for the best good of those around you, then you're standing in a genuine power, a self-love power, a confident power.
And here's where the self-love part comes in when it's connected to power. Because I know we talked about it in the manifestation challenge, our power connected to manifestation, our beliefs around that, but this is around self-love. So like we talked about yesterday in the self-loathing section, we have to think we have to believe we deserve it first before we can properly wield our innate power, right?
Yeah.
Because we all have it. None of us are truly powerless.
So if you don't believe that you deserve a thing, even if that thing is handed to you, you will try to play hot potato with it and get rid of it as quick as possible. So if you don't believe that you are powerful, that you deserve power, that you can stand in your power, even if it is given to you, you're going to get rid of that. You're gonna throw your power away. You're gonna give it to everybody else because you haven't learned how to stand in it yet.
So this means that we have to love, respect, and trust ourselves, okay, in order to wield our power.
Yeah.
When we go to someone that we trust, or like we talked about yesterday, a coach or a mentor, someone that can reflect back to us that love, we love, respect, and trust them, and are willing to spend time with them, pay them money, go to them for advice, whatever it is, because we love, respect, and trust them, and we take that to heart. But often we don't love, respect, and trust ourselves enough to wield our own power.
Or to give ourselves those kinds of resources.
And the reason we're doing this is sort of like, how do we love ourselves and how do we see that love reflected in other people? Like we did our exercise yesterday, is because those are baby steps to get us to trust ourselves.
And Chelsea says, no one calls Tony Robbins or Oprah a dick. They've got major power and confidence.
Because they're not a dick.
Exactly. But how are they using that power and that confidence? And that's a great way to exemplify leaders in power who are wielding it with facing their fears, getting down to their roots, and learning how to wield that power in a positive manner. Power itself is not what corrupts you. Your inability to look at your shit is what corrupts you.
I think what corrupts you are your fears of inadequacy and your feelings of not being powerful. Right. So those two things, like we talked about before, the two greatest fears when learning to wield your power: fear of inadequacy, the inadequacy to wield it properly, and the fear of feeling powerless itself.
Right. So Chelsea says, epic fail for me would have been staying with my ex thinking I could help him grow up.
Oh.
Yep. Nope.
I like that.
Flora says, I've stayed in dysfunctional relationships because I was afraid to be alone. Absolutely. Yeah. Holly says, been there, done that.
Yeah.
Or been there, done with that.
Yeah. Yep.
And Nancy says, when I let a man love with me and he almost killed me.
Yeah.
Yeah. Those are some pretty big moments where you've epically given your power away.
Yeah.
And Holly says, pinnacle leaders. Yeah. Absolutely. Those are some very pinnacle leaders. We're talking about Oprah and Tony Robbins. Absolutely.
So let's talk next about why we give our power away.
Why do we do that?
Okay. So, or maybe how. I don't know. So let's see. This is like a mix of why and how. So negative self-talk, like we've talked about, I think, in another class, maybe not this.
We did a different
We always talk about negative self-talk, is the symptom of this feeling powerless, right? It's like the obvious symptom.
Where we're recognizing that we do not love, respect, and trust ourselves, but giving that power away can be a lot more subtle. Okay,
Right.
so recognizing that we're talking shit to ourselves, we're talking bad to ourselves, talking
That's
smack
obvious.
to ourselves, that's super obvious, but that's only the symptom. Underneath that is we're giving that power away.
Right. So, like I said, the negative self-talk, it's easy to recognize. It's like a symptom of I don't love myself enough. But here are some more subtle ways. Like yesterday, we got into the subtle nuances of self-loathing.
Mm-hmm.
So here's a question to ask you. Are you a victim of circumstance? Because this is where we see the big one manifesting. Are you a victim of your circumstances as much as you thought? Mm-hmm. So often we think we're a victim of circumstance when we're really not. We're just surrendering to the circumstance. So even when the circumstance is one where we could easily be justified by ourselves and other people to just throw our hands up and say, I surrender, I'm a victim.
Right.
Even when that is a possibility and a very much reality, we still have a choice to not be a victim to that circumstance.
And this goes back to the same thing that I was talking about before, is your perception creates your reality. When you achieve that state where you can take any situation, even the worst situation, and grow from it, and even better if it's in the moment, then you've achieved the ability to wield your power in a positive manner, because these situations, even though they may be done to you, they don't have any power over you because you grow from them.
I'll give you a really simple example. I've been in a situation where someone's insulted me, called me a bitch or a snob or a something. And someone may have said to me, this person called you this. And I'm like, so that's their perception. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to take it personally.
And how amazing, because they're still talking about me.
So that's not being a victim to your circumstance. I had every right to be like, what?
Oh, that little, yeah.
I just gave my power away in that moment.
She went way more drag queen than I ever do.
I've grown up around drag queens. Right. I live in Las Vegas. I have friends that are drag queens. So,
it is a lot more common.
That's a super, super simple way that you give your power away. You surrender to that insult if you're solid and have self-love, trust, and respect for yourself, those things are not going to affect you in any kind of way.
Which takes a continual practice until you've built that foundation. Once you've built that foundation, these things don't hurt you.
So often we give our power away on a daily basis in little things like that, and we don't even realize it becomes a habit of disempowerment.
Because, and here's one of the whys why we give our power away, is because we've been trained a lot of times from the time we were children all the way up, that if you stand in your power, then that's a bad thing. Okay? So with that habit, we choose the habit of disempowering ourselves so that we can fit into this pack, this very same pack that is telling us that we can't experience our power.
So here's a powerful way to deal with the scenario I just described. So say someone calls you a snob or a bitch or whatever. For me, my response in my mind would be, I can totally have snobby moments. I can completely have bitchy moments. I own that. That's me standing in my power. But you know what? I'm not a snob or a bitch.
Right.
And that's my self-respect and trust of myself. Now, that's not who I am, but I can have those moments. We all can. So, because we're human, and that's okay. So, or you can just be like, I'm not that, and like ghost, you totally surrendered your power to that person.
And you just ghosted yourself.
Yes. So
you just walked out on yourself and
you've been in a similar circumstance to that. I know you have. Raise your hand if you have just been so insulted by, someone who said something about you that you knew wasn't true.
Because in that moment, realize that you're giving your power away to them by reacting.
Yeah.
You just gave your power away. They won. Whoever this was that was insulting you, whatever the situation was that made you feel like shit, you just gave your power away to them.
Right.
So some common disempowering comments.
Real quick.
I can't get the job I want.
My relationship is terrible, but I made a commitment that can't be broken before God and the world and all my relatives and friends, and I'm stuck.
My health is shitty. I just can't seem to get healthy. I eat like shit. I never work out. I don't have time. I don't have all of these other reasons for not taking care of yourself healthily. Yes. And another one.
Can't make enough money. That's a really common one.
Yep.
I'm blocking my manifestation. Blocking. Okay, let's talk a little bit. I see some hands raised by,
Yep.
you've like gone drama queen when
Yep.
someone insulted you.
Mhm.
Okay, that's a very simple example, but we're going to give you some deeper
Right.
examples of how you might be giving your power away in just a moment.
And Nancy says, I meet a lot of psychic vampires. And I'm
Mhm.
glad that you brought that up, because the question that I have after that is, it doesn't matter how many vampires you meet. Do they take your power?
Don't open a vein.
Do they take your power?
Yeah. So you have control over that. So
How many of those vampires have you allowed to take your power?
And that's a tough one because we've all surrendered to that, because
Mhm.
a lot of psychic vampires
Right.
they don't seem like malicious people on the outside.
Mhm.
They're just, their neediness can spill over into
Right.
our space, and we give back without realizing that we're opening a vein.
Yeah.
So the topic of psychic vampires can be very tricky
Mhm.
to navigate,
Right.
especially if you're trying to see everyone in their best light.
Mhm.
So let's talk about a little bit more about motivation for power.
Yep.
So if deep down we all want to feel powerful, why do we give it away? Okay, and we're going to talk about one reason that has the most to do with a lack of self-love.
So a lot of times we shy away from or suppress our power because we are afraid of creating negative consequences. Our power might hurt people. So we want to thrust that responsibility on somebody else. And
Right.
this goes into a primal mentality, a pack mentality. Everybody says they want to be the alpha, the one in control, the one in power. Deep down, they really do. But when it comes to having that amount of responsibility, we're not sure that we can take it.
They're going to give
We're
it
not
away.
sure that we can handle it, because we haven't built up that alpha mentality within ourselves that, you know what, yeah, I can do this. That confidence, that value, that self-love, that, yeah, you know what, I can do this. Not only can I do this for everybody else, but I can do this for me. And if I do this for me, I become the leader by showing people how to do it for themselves.
So we don't trust ourselves enough to do it on our own. And like I said, there's always those interims when we're learning to see ourselves reflected in someone that we totally trust. But
Right.
you see let's go to the extreme, right? You see cult groups totally filled with people who do not love themselves, that are looking to the leader that is just sucking, talk about psychic vampires, that's just like sucking on like the dark crystal. They're just like, all these people love me, because that cult leader doesn't know how to love themselves.
Right. And those, the followers, the cult followers, they don't know how to love themselves either. So nobody in that type of situation really knows how to love themselves. So you don't really have a solid leader, and you don't really have solid followers.
So we place trust in others before we are strong enough and confident enough to create enough of it on our own. Sometimes in a good way with people that are trustworthy, and sometimes with people that seem like they are. And we're not, but because we haven't taken the time to trust, love, and respect ourselves enough, and have that leap of faith we were talking about yesterday, we can't recognize the right people when they do come to partner with us. So the wrong people come to partner with us.
Right. So I want you to realize that that part right there is a part of our human development. When we develop as a child, we have to learn from those around us. So we emulate those around us. They're supposed to guide us and lead us and make sure that we don't die out in the wild. So we give that power to them so they can show us, hopefully, how to eventually learn how to embrace our own power, stand on our own 2 feet, and navigate the world without dying on our own.
So I know this is going there in some way towards our inner child that is not grown up yet, and that really is true. We learn our sense of self-power from our parents because they're showing us, good job, good job. And like, we're watching a thing on the lions the other day where daddy lions will let the baby lions win.
And
So
they'll pretend to be hurt to give them confidence.
Oh, I did it. I like beat my dad up,
Yep.
Or I remember my brother letting me win checkers. I know he could kick my ass. But in that moment at 8 years old, I thought I beat him. I know I didn't. So, but that gave me that confidence that I'm smart, So,
Right.
I mean, all of these things we learn from our mentors when we're kids and our parents. They give us that confidence to self-love, trust, and respect ourselves and our choices and our ability to wield our power. So when we relinquish our power, it sometimes is to the idea as when we're adults that we don't want to do the work. whatever that work is, the
So
self-love.
pass the buck, put it on somebody else.
To love us so we don't have to self-love. To do surrender to this contract we have to fill out to buy this house without doing our homework and our research. Like, oh, you know what you're talking about. You're the loan officer or the doctor or whatever. Right. Without doing our part, which is the research we need to do. We surrender completely to someone else.
And we neglect our personal responsibility, the personal responsibility for our own lives and our own mission. So when we do that and we kind of pass the buck and step out of the way of our own power and throw it away and put it on somebody else can take the lead or whatever, the wrong people end up showing up because we're so anxious to fill that empty void and get it over with so we can get back to the comfort zone. And this is a beta mentality, okay? Actually, it's more of an omega mentality, which is kind of the lowest rung on the hierarchy when it comes to pack mentality. You've got this beta who is perfectly okay. A genuine beta is perfectly okay with the leader, okay? They follow the leader, they make sure everybody else follows the leader, everything else is good. That has been established. When there is no alpha, when there is no leader, the pack goes into like a crazy mode because order has not been established. It goes into a chaos. Once a leader has been established, the rest of the pack calms down. Okay? Most of that time, it's because a lot of people in that pack, they're like, I don't want to do it. I don't want to do it. You do it. You do it. I don't want to do it. You do it. Once somebody steps up and takes the lead, everybody else can calm down. And it's the same thing in our life. Once that void has been filled, the chaos calms down and we have peace again.
So if you've grown up watching Star Trek and are a total nerd like me, you'll know this scenario. The captain is out of commission, right? So the number one, who's the beta, is very capable of stepping up and taking over that captain position while the captain is sick.
Sure.
Right? Because the beta is not necessarily less than.
No, right.
It's just they're not acting in that moment. And I hate the expression, number one, it's racist, but too many chiefs, not enough Indians. Okay, because number one, it's false.
Right.
If you have a room full of chiefs,
solid power people,
true bosses, you're going to build something amazing overnight.
Right.
If you have one chief and all the Indians, I'm just going to go with a racist example because I know it's racist, but you've got, okay, this is the people that are the whatever, they're just like waiting for direction. But if you've got a room full of leaders, they understand what it's like to be a follower and a leader, so they can very easily take the lead.
And they know how to bounce. Follow. Yeah, they know how to bounce the ball back and forth.
And I've been in rooms full, masterminds full of leaders who are putting their egos aside for the greater mission. So a true group of chiefs are putting their egos aside for the greater mission, and they can work with each other. They recognize each other's strengths. They go, I got this, you do that, I'll help you, you help me. It becomes more productive. Yeah. So I hate that expression because it's not true when you've got a room full of true leaders.
And again, that's one of those phrases, one of those concepts that disempowers the individual.
Disempowers everybody else, but that one person who can be the leader.
So the true mastermind group, if you can get into a true mastermind group where you've got a bunch of people who can stand in their power, a bunch of Tony Robbins, a bunch of Oprah type people, then you're going to have an amazing experience. And the energy in those kinds of experiences and those kinds of meetings and masterminds is phenomenal. It is absolutely phenomenal.
Here's the other thing, okay, just to shatter a myth, is that in Native American culture, just as a side note and a diversion, that wasn't even the construct because people would rotate years being the chief. So it would be like you have this sort of circle that where everybody's equal and different people would be the chief, and you'd have groups of people like the grandmother circle that would exchange ideas, and there might be one person who's like the foreman of the night, right? You know, so really even that is completely a myth. Okay, so let's talk about, before we get into the meditation,
5 ways you may be giving your power away.
I know we decided to focus on these 5 because they seem to be the most common, but also the most subtle at the same time.
So when we have a natural desire to feel powerful, and we've already talked about that, but when we don't feel powerful in our own right, we end up orchestrating our outer lives in a way that makes us feel powerful.
So we create the illusion of power in our lives in so many multitudes of ways.
Multitudinous ways.
That we do not realize that we're giving it away. And this is what we're going to talk about today. Some of these are obvious. Some of these are not so obvious. And some of them you might go, oh God, that's me.
So as a result of not wanting to use our power, we end up giving it away. And one of the biggest ones is any addiction. Whether we're talking about food, talking about shopping, talking about technology, talking about drugs, TV, sex, pets, people, whatever it is that we give power to that external thing and allow it to control us. The underlying belief with that is we cannot be happy, we cannot be ourselves, or we cannot be free without the thing. This is where it becomes the addiction.
One of these things we see very commonly is people collect unnecessary possessions. They buy too many of the one thing they don't need.
She's talking about me. This is actually a thing that I've consciously and conscientiously been working on, but it's definitely a thing that has been one of those programs under the surface that just goes on autopilot until you start calling it out and start addressing it, and then you can start working on it. In order to fix the thing, you have to name the thing. You have to figure out that there's an issue.
So sometimes you'll get unnecessary. Luckily, David doesn't buy 10 Lamborghinis. He'll buy a whole bunch of toilet paper, but it's all good things. But it's just kind of a running joke in our house that David buys bulk. So acquiring unnecessary possessions. So things you really, really don't need because they're filling a void. That's an addiction.
Too much food, eating too much food, buying too much food, shopping, technology, the addiction to social media. Okay, these are all addictions because if we have enough of this thing, then we'll be full instead of just being full.
So this next one, I think, to me is my favorite of the 5. I want to talk about this one a little bit more in depth, and that is controlling others or relinquishing control. This is the flagship one.
And it's a dual-sided one.
Yeah, so this is, we're going to give you the kind of victim side first. So relationships that you are in where you seem to keep facing the same difficult scenarios. I keep getting with the same guy or the same girl or the same partner, and I don't know why.
And that's a cycle. It doesn't matter if it's the same person or if it's different people. Because Becky was talking about an old relationship that she kept letting back in. We've all been through that cycle. I know I have. Where you go back to that old relationship hoping that it's going to work, and you're giving your power away.
So you're stuck in a repetitive pattern of giving power away to a partner or taking power from your partner. We're going to talk about that. This can show up as blame. It can show up as resentment, over dependence on each other, or one person to another, or having the same argument over and over and over.
With no resolution.
No resolution.
The other element to this is trying to control others' behavior.
Right.
If this person could just be this person, trying to change people. Okay, that's another element of trying to control other people's behavior. So,
with the controlling others thing, this is a trap that I see people get into, especially healers and givers.
And we're not talking about trap music.
No, we're talking about the impulse to control others. If you would do this. If I see the plan laid out for you. Now, this is another trap we see spiritually aware people falling into. I know the answers. I gave them the answers. Why haven't they done it?
I know what's best for them.
And this is a trap where I see actual professionals, healers, and intuitives and readers get kind of stuck into. Because when their clients don't take their advice and run with it, they get attached to that process. And this is one reason why light workers get burned out, because they're attached to the process. And that is a way the light worker, the healer, the body worker is giving their power away to their client. They're attached to what their client does with that information. They're trying to control them in an indirect way.
And the flip side to that would be the spirit hoppers, the energy hoppers, the people that just go and do a whole bunch of energy work hoping that somebody, or saying that somebody knows better than them. So you've got the relinquishing of control there, whether it's a psychic reader, whether it's an energy worker, whether it's a psychiatrist. I don't care. That's an element of giving up your power to somebody else. The best scenarios and the best situations are when you partner with the professional. Okay? whether that's a psychiatrist, whether that's an energy healer, whether that's a reader, when you partner with a professional, you have a much better outcome because you're working with instead of submitting.
Right. Like, I'll give you an example for two different kinds of readings.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, just like, because, with card readings, because I know you guys are familiar with that construct.
Right.
You can have a reading and for guidance, because you have an innate knowing of what's going on in your life, and that reading can guide you.
Right.
Or you can be like, I don't know what to do. You have to tell me. I'm completely desperate. And you hang on every word and follow it to the T without checking your intuition and what your story is. Your reader, and we love our reader, our Zen Rose Garden reader, Erin Hurley, because she very much is in this. The power of her readings are in partnership with you. She will always say, does this resonate with you? Does this mean, if it doesn't, let me help you clarify it instead of let me tell you. She's not a magic 8-ball. Right. Even though she's a magic 8-ball. She's not online yet this morning either, so I'm talking shit about her.
Yeah, she's a magic 9-ball.
Whatever that means. So trying to control other people's behavior shows up in really subtle ways, from our spouse wanting to hit the toilet seat down to, trying to control our mom still, or our clients, or whatever it is. Wherever you're trying to control, whenever you find yourself saying, why didn't they follow me about it? They should have done this. They should have, could have, would have. Then you're trying to control other people's behavior. Then you are giving your power away. You are not self-loving and trusting and respecting yourself enough. And you're also not understanding that they love, trust, and respect themselves enough to follow their own heart.
Oh, speaking of her,
Erin Hurley, he just joined. Her ears were probably burning. We were just talking shit about you a second ago.
You're going to have to go watch the
Okay.
Anyway, so controlling the storyline, spreading the drama and the gossip, that's definitely a way to give your power away.
Yes.
Did you want to?
Yeah, so controlling the storyline. So I know you know this person or have been this person.
Chelsea says we summoned her.
We summoned her. That was magical, wasn't it, everybody? So spreading drama and gossip. That seems like a really easy one, right? We're like, I never spread drama or gossip, but do you? Mm-hmm. Okay, so a lot of times controlling the storyline is how I want to phrase it. Mm-hmm. Because knowledge, I've known people, and I've done it myself, where knowledge is power. Okay. Not your perception of the situation and allowing other people to have their perception of the situation, but knowledge is power. So if you have the right knowledge and you can tell that person, here's the real story, here's what really happened, here's what's going on in their divorce, those kinds of things where you feel powerful because of knowledge that you have, that's also giving your power away. Because now you're creating dramas and situations and spreading that wisdom around because it's giving you some external control of a circumstance.
If I'm the one who has this key piece of information and I share it with this person, they're going to love me and appreciate me.
So the underlying belief with these control dramas, controlling others or relinquishing control, is that you need someone else to give you love, attention, kudos for being the smartest, having the information.
Even down to money, down to finances. Somebody else owes me. They have to give it to me because I've done this for them.
So
which is different than an even exchange.
Here's the shitty part for you, if this is you, or anyone in your life. These behaviors actually bring a deeper feeling of disempowerment and disillusionment.
Because you have not earned whatever this is for yourself. There is something very powerful when we earn our first dollar. When we earn our first $10, when we earn our first $100, $1,000, whatever it is, those are moments of personal achievement when we're talking about finances. We're also talking about doing things. When we build our first fire, when we build our first whatever, when we do our first thing, when we ride our first bike and we get that moment where we get it on our own, those are feelings of genuine empowerment because you did the work to achieve the result that you were aiming for, which is what? Power.
So we seek to control the things we feel we can control when we feel out of control, rather than tapping into our innate power source, which is scary, right? And it all comes to, do we love, respect, and trust ourselves enough, even if we don't know? Excuse me. Whipping up coffee. Okay.
Which I want more of.
It's almost never second coffee.
Okay, so let's go with number 3.
Money. Okay, I want to be. These are quickie ones, and I want
Right.
to get to number 5 because that's my other favorite. So money. Simply, we could go talk or give a whole live on money,
Right.
but we often allow money to dictate how we feel about ourselves, or rather, we should have the money is actually a reflection of how we feel in a positive way. How we use money should be a reflection of how we feel about ourselves.
Right. So that part is the money part. We allow it to dictate us. We give our power to the money, or we let that be a reflection of who we are. The other one is health.
I'm not done talking about money.
Okay, talk about money.
Yeah, I said I was going to be brief, but I'm going to throw a couple other things.
I was trying to be brief.
He was trying to be brief.
She's like, pull up your briefs.
With some money. Okay, so when we have a lot of money, this does not mean you're poor or rich. Has to do with your attitudes about money. How are you giving your power to how much money that you do have?
Mm-hmm.
If you have no money and you're like, I'm poor, I don't have any money, I can't get enough money, you're giving your power away to the money.
Yes.
If you have a lot of money and you're just extravagant and you're still addicted to all these things, let's say you have millions and millions of dollars and you're still using money with the wrong attitude, with a lack mentality, you're buying and buying and buying and buying and buying, the money is still not reflecting your true power.
You're still giving it away. You're giving power to the money.
So it doesn't matter if you have it or not, it's how much are you giving. It's like, I'm going to quote a wisdom story from the Bible. Where you've got the people coming to give their offerings at the temple on whatever holiday, Jewish holiday, and you've got the rich man bringing like a couple bucks, which is like a big deal, right? And then you've got the widow bringing the mite, which is probably like half a penny, right? And she's offering it, and the priest is like calls him out, and he's like, you're not giving from your heart, not that it hurts, but you're not giving something generous. This is nothing to you, but this woman just gave everything she has, her entire thing.
I don't know why that's making me emotional.
Because it is. It's like the priest in that situation called them out and said, even though you're giving more money than she has, it's the attitude that she's bringing.
Right.
She's bringing her heart.
And she's giving her all. She's giving her everything.
And you're doing something that's like a throwaway for you. You're not doing something that's meaningful. So
you're not making it important and meaningful.
Even though the donation was big, he was like, in your heart, it's not meaningful.
Right.
So he's not saying, give me more money. He's just saying, where's your heart?
Right.
So that's the powerful. So that powerful... why is this making me super emotional? So that powerful giving of the widow was faith. It was like, that was coming from her true power. Like, I'm giving this away, but I have faith that I can make something new. Mm-hmm. So it didn't challenge the other guy the way it challenged her. So
right. So she transformed it and used it as a challenge, whereas he didn't.
Okay, that's right. Don't know for myself. Okay, so number 4 is health, because David already said it.
Right. So whenever we have pain, illness, or disease in our bodies, we're out of balance. Okay? So how are we giving power to heal ourselves away? Okay? So instead of seeking every option, every opportunity to bring your health back and to shift and change your diet, to shift and change your mental process with it, to transform it into, you know what? I'm going to use this
and take my power back.
Right, and take my power back. But oftentimes we end up relinquishing our health to open heart surgery, and then we go back to eating junk food. Whatever it is, we end up giving the doctors the power and not taking responsibility for our own health, because they'll fix us. They'll make us better so we can go back and do the things that we were fucking up in the first place.
Okay, cool. So I'm going to rant a little and give you a pet peeve on this one, and I apologize if we go a little bit past the hour today.
Right.
But I have a pet peeve with this one, and that is, and it's with spiritual people in the metaphysical community, who there was a little kind of a craze a while ago that, and there's truth to this. There's absolute truth to this. I can like put some positive vibrations into the water, and it makes it, crystalline, and there is truth to our ability to transform energy and matter, right?
The power of our intention, the power of our own energy.
If you're starting with the Jack in the Box cheeseburger that's like 25% sawdust, you're not going to get a whole lot of action out of your vibes. You're going to get a little bit. But so I've seen spiritual people do this where they're like, I don't worry about what I eat because I just vibe on it and it just makes it magical. And as it goes into my body, it becomes magical.
But they're still eating junk food.
So why not start with something fucking healthy in the first place and magnify it even better instead of working. So to me, that's bypassing and giving your power away and being too lazy to get the best things that you can into your body that you can afford.
Food is the first medicine.
And then praying on it, meditating on it, Reikiing it, doing whatever you can because the universe operates under the concept of grace. You do the best that you can do and the universe will fill in the rest 20 times. But if you're not doing the best that you can do, you're like, I got this, shitty cheeseburger and I'm going to like make it whatever. This is what I eat every day. The universe is like, I'm going to go find somebody that's trying a little harder.
Yep.
So.
All right, so rant done.
Rant done.
Hashtag end rant. So yeah, whatever you put into your body, you get out.
Holly's like, I love you. Okay, so
yep.
I don't know if I'm the only one with this pet peeve, but I'm going to say it out loud.
Right.
So number 5.
Next we get into
depression. Okay, this one's a tough one because sometimes it can be chemical and sometimes it becomes chemical because we haven't dealt with things.
Right.
So it's a tricky one for us to talk about because there's a lot of different circumstances and factors that go into why you are depressed. But we're going to talk about it in the terms of self-love. So depression often happens when we feel out of control in our lives. We don't feel like we can change things to create what we want in our lives. We feel powerless to change things.
Yeah.
So we opt out or we shut down to some degree and it becomes depression. Depression, as we say in the mind arts, is a repressed anger.
The mind arts. I love
the
that.
Mind arts.
Because a lot of time it is. And again, this goes back to the power and the ability to express your power without feeling shame or guilt for just being in that expression. So because this has been shut down for a period of time and we don't have that freedom to express the anger, the frustration, the grief even, the sadness, whatever it is, we don't have that power to express it, so we end up going inwards. We shut down, we opt out, we shut down our feelings, our emotions, the sadness, because the mind is wired to avoid pain. So we start shutting down those feelings that are causing the pain, which would just, most of the time, give ourselves a few minutes to just get the expression out, get the energy out, and then we can reset to normal. But because we don't feel powerful enough to express that, it ends up shutting down. What happens with that is you also end up shutting down the good feelings too.
Yeah.
So over time, depression gets you to a state of numbness. And then something triggers and you blow up and then you feel like shit and you squash it back down.
So to sum up, what kicks off depression is often a feeling that you can't control or you feel like you can't control, like grief and anger. You just don't know how to process it. So the one thing that you can do is control all the emotions by shutting them down.
Right.
Then you're feeling nothing and you think you've controlled it. Right. Or really those feelings are under there along with your power.
Yeah.
So like I said, that's a tricky one, and it's one that kind of is the center for most of the work that we do.
Right.
Because when we're out of control, we go through the cycle of anger and depression. Okay. So I hope that makes sense for you guys. So how to reclaim your power, and then David's going to take us on our journey. So once you recognize the signs, and we gave you a lot of subtle ones you probably didn't think of before, and you're willing to reclaim your power, it can shift really quickly within you. Because you freed up all those resources that are trying to control yourself and other people. Mm-hmm. And then your outer reality changes very quickly.
Right.
So the inner part of this is some part of your inner child has not grown up. So we're talking about some bratty part of you that doesn't want to eat their spinach. Right? You have to go back and you have to teach that part of you to love, respect, and trust yourself and your choices.
Right. So a fast trick is when you have these moments where you feel out of power, when you feel like you're giving it away, ask yourself, which part of me still wants to be taken care of
Yes.
and be a child, doesn't want to grow up. So that act of giving power away often begins at a very young age, and go back to that moment. Go back to that time.
So like the daddy lion who lets the little baby lion win once in a while, we learn how to use and wield our power in a safe space with our parents or our mentors when we're very young.
Mm-hmm.
So when we're adults, we often see grown-up adult children exhibiting these child spaces where I just want somebody to take care of me. I just want to marry a rich man. I don't want to do this. I just want to do this surgery so I don't have to do the work to lose weight or whatever it is. I'm not saying anything bad about surgery because my brother's a surgeon, but
I want other people to work and give me the money.
But it's the laziness. It's the not wanting to do the work yourself, which is a lack of self-respect and self-love.
To take that personal responsibility for their own actions and put their nose to the grindstone and get their shit done that they want done.
And as far as money goes, it's I wish someone would give me $1 million so that I could just have no worries and
or win the lottery.
But yet you're not doing enough to get yourself to that point. So if you can get yourself to that point, a windfall can happen. So like I said, the universe works the same way. If you're doing all that you can do, guess what? Opportunities are going to be lined up for you because you're showing that you're worthy.
And the thing with that is that even if you were to have this tremendous windfall and you came into millions of dollars, if you have not built up the foundation, you won't hold on to it.
Right. Which is why the universe is not going to give you $1 million until you build the foundation for the house.
Did you hear my phone call or something? I was totally joking and saying all that stuff. Thanks, Chelsea.
You know what's funny? Chelsea, I had a dream about you last night that you were making me a sandwich in your farmhouse.
Aww.
I don't know if you live in a farmhouse, but you live on a farm.
No, I want a Chelsea sandwich.
Yeah, you made me a sandwich. I was eating dinner with your family. It was really sweet. I was like, you made me a sandwich, and then you made me this little round cookie with cream cheese in the middle and some spinach.
Yeah. All right, so thanks for that, Chelsea.
So thank you for breakfast, Chelsea, last night in my dreams.
Yeah.
I guess I'm excited for you to come visit pretty soon in a couple weeks. So.
Definitely.
Okay, let us get to the meditation. I hope all of that made sense for you guys. Like I said, these are some places where we see people really blocking their self-love in ways that are subtle because they just want to think it's easier to control or get it from outside.
Yeah, and we want to go back to that child self that has things done for them.
Right.
Because then it's all handed to you.
Right, and
it's the easy button.
It's nice, though, to have people do things for you. It's a treat, right? But that shouldn't be your primary motivation.
No.
Don't forget we've got that offer for you tomorrow that closes on day 7. So grab it if you're ready or do the challenge again. So let's keep going.
I want you to let us know when you complete the meditation that you've completed day 3. Put hashtag day 3 done. So I'm going to give you your homework in a minute. But for me, I had an epiphany. And I've talked about this situation many times in our teaching when I came home from kindergarten and I said, I hate my teacher because she had done something that angered me. And the only word I had was, I hate my teacher. But instead of my mom exploring that with me, she said, we don't hate. Jesus doesn't want us to hate. So now Jesus hates me because I'm hating my teacher and I'm in trouble with Jesus. So in that moment, I lost some of my power, but also the ability to process negative emotions. So the reason I was mad at my teacher was this. I hated my teacher. My mom, when I was very little, like 3 years old, we got a huge library and I wanted to read. She started to teach me to read very young. So by the time I was in kindergarten, I was already reading at like a 3rd grade level or some shit. And so the teacher handed out an assignment and I could read it and finish it. And I finished it before she had finished passing the papers out. And she was looked really shocked. And I was like, here, I'm done. And then she did it again and I finished the paper and she gave me another assignment. I kept finishing it and she was really frustrated and had called me out and sort of shamed me because of it. Because I was going too fast. And I think to me, being a substitute teacher, years ago, I know handing out assignments as teachers, you kind of are really looking forward to that moment where you could have 5 minutes to yourself. And, so I get it from that point. But in that moment, I felt shamed because I was using my power, and I was excited because I was just starting kindergarten. I was excited to start school, and I was seeing what I could do with the knowledge in my head, but I was shamed for it in front of the class in some way.
Yeah.
If you're going too fast and you're going to have to go sit in the reading corner, just all of these, it wasn't, instead of like kind of empowering me and saying, hey, maybe you want to like
help me pass out papers,
or give me some busy work to make me feel like a reward or something.
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of went back in my meditation and kind of became the teacher and helped my child self in an empowering way to feel happy and, proud of myself. Yeah. So,
and that's a fairly common one, especially for people who are very intelligent and have exercised the mind or started early with school before they even got into school. I remember similar situations with me going into school and feeling bad because I was smarter.
So you're shamed for using your power.
Ridiculed or made fun of because I was faster or smarter. It wasn't because I was necessarily faster or smarter. I just started earlier.
Like I started earlier.
Right.
Yeah.
So any of these kids, if they were given the same upbringing, probably could have done the same thing. But because we were the oddballs, we were the ones that were ridiculed.
Well, my mom was a classic overachiever just like me. So she was like, let's teach you how to read when you're in the womb. So, it's just being shamed. Sometimes we're being shamed by others outside of ourselves for using our power. And so we relinquish our power. Mm-hmm. Like, oh, you're right. I need to stay with the pack.
And an example of that for me was in junior high. In my junior year of high school, I intentionally gave all of my power away, all of my smarts, and I tried my best to be the worst student. The worst student I could possibly be, because I wanted to try it for myself. So I took myself deeper into being a bad student to fit in.
I did the same thing in high school. Like, I don't care about that. I don't care about that.
Right. And then what I ended up doing in senior year was I overachieved again. So I kind of rebounded and...
So we do crazy things because of being ashamed for wielding our power.
Mm-hmm. So, whatever that power is for you.
So what I want you to do, and I love it if you'd come back and share it in the comments after you do the homework for day 3.
So homework today is...
pinpoint a moment where you consciously chose to give your power away for the first time. And for me, that was the moment. The first moment I can remember where I consciously gave my power away and surrendered it. Mm-hmm. And I go back and speak to that younger version of yourself and invite them to make a different choice. Right. So that's what I did in that meditation was I invited her to make a different choice. Mm-hmm. So me as the teacher and me as the child.
Yeah, and that's funny because she's talking about it and I'm getting all emotional in my junior year.
But share with us in the comments your homework, your epiphanies, and hashtag day 3 done so we know that you've completed it.
All right. So once again, thank you guys for joining us. And we know that time is a precious and valuable commodity and resource. And the fact that you guys choose to spend that with us and continue choosing to spend that not only with us, but with yourself, we absolutely value and appreciate that. And we hope that you guys also value and appreciate the time that you spend in your life, in the different areas of your life. So thank you once again. And we will catch you guys tomorrow.
See you tomorrow.
Don't forget we've got that offer for you tomorrow that closes on day 7. So grab it if you're ready or do the challenge again.